Yeah, it doesn't really make a difference.
Doesn't really have to be the intro. Obviously, we cut it in when we want to.
Does it give you a certain like time limit?
Yeah, well, we've got because it's only a trial, we were given one total hour, and I think now we have 32 minutes or something. So obviously we have less than that because Mr. FatherMillennial goes live in 29. So
yeah, it can be a few minutes late, but whatever.
I think that's plenty of time, honestly.
Oh yeah, I think not super long, but kind of right in the middle works good. So
yeah, I mean, I think that our times, like the actual recording time, has been decent for the one video that we've had.
I know, yeah.
I think you should be pretty damn entertaining if you're gonna do hours of talking, and you should have quite a timeline going, which I don't think we really have, but that's okay. I was gonna say, looking back, because I've seen our previous video quite a few times now, I've noticed annoying things that I do.
Yeah, I've noticed the same for
that
myself.
I don't pick up until I'm watching it. And I guess I just wanted to say, looking back at that particular VOD, it's man, I should be more cognizant of cutting people off, cutting you off, wiping the dust, and
I know. And me going I'm over here.
No, it's like this, right?
Yeah.
It's this. You're oh, hey. Yeah. But your mic just makes it. Yeah.
I know. Fuck it. You need bloopers too, I guess.
Fuck it. Yeah. I know. You don't want to have it be like a classroom session, honestly. I was thinking though, about when we were looking at talking about previous VODs, looking at our previous recordings and kind of what we've learned or the things that you pick up on is kind of interesting, right? Because when you're live, you kind of expect everything to go your way, and then if you do have a bad night or something like that, I think you do need to go back and look and kind of reassess, and that's where I have you to reflect on, because a lot of that stuff would just be I would just bottle it up and just endlessly be annoyed by it.
Yeah, I have a tendency to skip parts of my VOD that I know I don't like. I'm now I know I got super weird right there. I'm not looking at it. So then I'm no, you're looking at it. Force myself to sit, and I'm oh, I can't do that. That's, it's just, for me, the hardest part is watching myself. Even with this stuff, watching yourself's hard. I don't like my voice. I don't like my mannerisms, but then people don't notice that. You notice yours, I notice mine. You're just normal to other people because that's how you are. But yeah, looking back is super important and super hard.
It's like when you're a kid and you would record yourself on a tape cassette. Obviously we're dating ourselves here, but remember having a recorder and taping your voice and then listening to it and being I sound weird, right? It's
that's not my voice.
It's yeah. It's like that, but amplified, because it's video and it's interactions and it's just subtle things that you're doing in 1080p.
I know. I'm always I get compliments oh, you got a nice voice, and I'm thinking the one that I hear when I hear it, I always want to change because I think I sound weird. But then when I'm being completely normal, that's the one people enjoy. So I think there's sometimes that you have to take the outside advice as well, because what's coming from inside of you sometimes is the harshest criticism. So that's why it's nice to have other people. I like when you watch my VODs or you watch my streams or any of the other guys do, so that, it's just, you have somebody will usually tell you, if you trust them, that something's off. And I think you have to have that trust in it as well.
Yeah, because it's tough, because a lot of people want to see you do well, right? And I do too, but I also want to see you do better. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
I'm not I would hope that you would reciprocate in the state that or in the case that if I see something that's negative or not negative, or just leading, bad lighting last week, I was man, your light's too bright. Your face is white as a ghost, right? And I want to tell you that, because I want you, if you see it on mine, to be dude, your nose is shining. My nose is still shiny. You know what I mean? I'm what am I have to put makeup on to make this go away? You know what I mean?
I do. It's the whole broccoli and the teeth thing, right?
Yeah.
Like I would the people that have, have some anxiety about pointing stuff out like that. Like you don't want to see your friend walk into, doing a presentation with the broccoli in their teeth. You got to say it. So, and you have to understand that people saying that stuff aren't, making fun of you. Like you said, your face is washed straight out. And I looked, I'm like, it is. I look like Uncle Fester off the Addams Family. Like, what the hell happened? But it was just the settings on my light, right? Yeah. So a couple pushes of a button and it's fixed and you don't think about it again. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think you have to.
Yeah. Sorry. I was just going to say that like, then there are people that want to see you do well and they're kind of cheer you on regardless of what it looks like or what it's like what the production value really is. And
right,
it's nice, but it's not constructive because you're not really getting criticisms. You're just like, carry on, which will also probably lead you down and lead you up a positive kind of, lead you down a positive road, I guess, where you will improve and you will do better. But for me and for you, I feel like if we point something out, it's better. It's just quicker. It's just quicker.
It is. And it's not being supportive. It's kind of being hyper supportive. If you have if you have the gall to say that to your friends, you're supporting them, but you're also trying to direct them, and that's not trying to take over anything. You're just trying to do little things to make them better. And that is the actual, definition of constructive criticism, which a lot of people get wrong a lot of the times. And the criticisms they're giving aren't constructive, but if you can do it in a way that you're just saying, hey, you should look at this. It doesn't have to just be streaming. It doesn't have to be anything. If you look at this facet of your life in a way that I'm seeing that you've got the blinders on, do you know what I mean? Sometimes it's nice to have someone outside of that periphery to tell you what it is and how you can refocus it. And that's an important part. And I know that's for our friendship, and a lot of people have different ways, but that's what works for us.
Yeah. And that's only like specific to streaming. But I mean, like part of a larger conversation between you and I is just like mental health in general. And like, just full out being like, dude, this behavior is like abnormal. Like, you know what I mean? Like what you're dealing with is abnormal. And like, even that is constructive criticism, right? Like, no one wants to hear that. Like, everything's going to be fine. Like people get shot. Like, oh, you're going to be fine. You're going to be fine, bro. That's more like that creates more nerves on that person, right? Because they're like, fuck, like I'm fucking dying here. You know what I mean?
I'm not fine. Yeah. And that's the, no, that's exactly right. You have to acknowledge that you're in kind of a bad space in order to be able to get out of it. That's the same thing, if, my big thing this year is grief, for example, and to be pointed out when, you're not like, you'll be fine. You're like, no, you're not going to be fine. There's a traumatic event. This is the mindset you're in at this particular point in this journey. You need to identify that this is where this is where you is. And it's not where you want to be. So if you want to get outside of that, you have to be aware of your surroundings.
Yeah. And I think personally with this whole podcast thing, like I didn't want to really just open the can and be full on and say that like you've lost your father within the last 4 months, right? Like right before you started streaming, you lost your dad.
Before,
and I remember being like, you're gonna have to channel like the negativity and the depression and everything that you're gonna be hit with is gonna have to be channeled somewhere. And I remember just thinking like, man, like you've talked about streaming with me, and like if there's going to be a time, this is going to have to be it. You know what I mean? And I'm not going out and saying that your father had to pass away for you to start streaming, but I knew that there was going to be some energy that you were going to have to channel. And I'm like, well, we have to flip this. Like we have to figure something out. And I thought that, it's a bit opportunistic, I will admit.
Sure.
You know what I mean? But I think that it came from a good place, and it's not like, again, like we have two channels, it's for you know what I mean? And it's like,
it's a great focuser. Like I think Sarah would agree too, if we were talking about it, that this has provided me with a little bit of a focus for some of that time, which would have been a bit of a void right now dealing with what I have. And I'm not going to be, I'm over it. It's not something you get over. People who tell you that you do are just trying to help you. Like you said, kind of that's their way. But, filling the emptiness is a big step in that, and doing something productive. And the opportunity for me to work with you on these different types of things, whether it's podcasts or streaming or I get a lot of joy out of like working on OBS and stuff like that, just stuff that keeps the gears turning a lot.
Yeah.
So there's not that much empty space in your head. So I'm kind of thinking about this stuff when I'm not involved with the kids or with my wife or doing those sort of things. When I don't have those distractions, I now have this positive thing that kind of keeps my mind out of that empty space where you get trapped in that stage that you can't get out of. So I wouldn't say I'm out of it, but I would say that this is definitely helping me transition for sure.
Yeah, and like I don't think that this is a distraction for you, but I think it's definitely a good pivot for both of us, because what we started realizing, like when we got to that kind of 10 plus viewers and we had the regulars and like we had the Toms and the Gunnies and people that watch this podcast, like
Right.
You start realizing that like it's minute, man, but you can affect and change a person's day somewhere else, right? Like,
Absolutely.
you know what I mean? Like, even if
Yep.
it's just like a hi, like my buddy out here, like Matt, he'll wave to everybody. He waves to everybody because he's a nice guy, and he heard back in the day, he's like, oh, well, this guy was thinking about killing himself way back in the day, and like somebody waved to him as he went by and recognized that he existed. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's
Absolutely.
minute. It's very minute, and it's like you're just streaming on the internet. You're playing Fallout 76. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not looking to put anybody on a pedestal or a throne, but it's still an ability for you to be a positive influence on somebody, how small it may be, and it's still net positive. You know what I mean? That's
Absolutely.
what I thought anyway.
And it's good for both sides of it. It's the same thing for you and people in your stream. That's why I try. I know we don't play a lot of the same games when we're on stream, but I still like if you're playing something that you don't have a chance to look at your chat right over. If somebody pops in, just somebody in that stream saying hi. Like, I know for me, like, I'm your moderator and I'm your friend and I'm part of this. And I'm like, if I say hi to this person, if they want you to approach them and they're looking for something, like you said, you can change their day by saying hi, getting this streamer involved with them. But it also changes, I feel that on this side of the camera as well. If somebody's asking me, how are you doing? What are you doing? So it's a nice reciprocal relationship that a lot of people don't necessarily understand. And that's because they're on the outside looking in. This is, you can absolutely change someone's day, and the smallest of person that you don't know from halfway across the world can change your day with just a couple lines. It's kind of mind-boggling when you think about it, but it's pretty neat.
Yeah, I think it's definitely not to be understated. And I think to be honest with me, when I turned 30, and you turned 30, we're the same age pretty much, right? Off by 2 weeks.
Right.
I turned 30, and then COVID kind of took a year to kind of settle in. And then when it did settle in, the two things combined kind of allowed me, or like put me in a state where I had to think a lot about who I was, what I was, like what I'm up to, right? Like,
yeah,
especially when you're like working from home, you're at home and you're at your job and you're like, is this my entire existence? Like start to finish? Like I wake up, I do this, and then I go to sleep. Like, is that it? You know what I mean? And
yeah,
like with me, like I work in IT. So, I mean, I do positively affect some people's lives. Oh, you fixed my laptop. You know what I mean? Like, but they're just things, right? So that like in terms of like a level of feeling complete, you know what I mean? It's not one of the first 100 words that would come out of my mouth when it comes to my job. You know what I mean?
No,
and like
that's right.
Streaming, I'm sure you've noticed as well, is like when you do go live and you do like you are able to have some minute level of effect on people, you get the same, if not a better feeling than, fixing someone's laptop or whatever, because for you, at least it was fun. Like you had fun doing it. Like you were playing a game.
Yeah, that's kind of the, that's the side dish that comes along with it, is you're doing something, but you're also doing it as part of something that you enjoy, because that's a big part of life that a lot of people don't spend enough time thinking about, is what do you want to do?
Yeah.
Because I know when I went into looking for a career, it was like, how do I make the most money? That was it. That was the only thing. I went to trade school. I picked the trade that made the most money at the time. I did it, got 6 months into it, and was like, I hate this. But the money's there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But and then so you talk about that, like do I get joy? Did I get joy out of going around fixing bait freezers and stuff like that? No, I mean someone did. I didn't. And right up through it, there's just a part that, like you said, when you're sitting back, you're at home, you got too much time, and you're thinking about things. You got to take a snapshot of your life, right there. Like I'm right in this space right now. Am I happy? And a lot of people, like for me, family and all of that, wife, kids, absolutely. But like the other things that are in there, no, not at all. So this has just been kind of a nice way to channel some of that into something productive.
Mm-hmm. And like the funny thing is, I think it entirely, like going back to I'm gonna beat a dead horse here, but to look back at your thoughts, to look back at your life, to look back on your day, and to really reflect, like to actually truly reflect on like some of those things, leads you to these conclusions where you're like, okay, like when you start being truthful to yourself. Like in my 20s, I feel like I did a lot of stuff and I had a lot of fun, and I went mountain biking and all this cool stuff, but I didn't really have like a huge inward look, and I didn't really, I think turning 30 showed me mortality, or not mortality, but like, I don't even know the word, but basically the ability for me to die at some point in my life. Like I turned 30 and I was like, yeah, okay, like I could die when I'm like, cause I remember the guy in St. Stephen, he grew up, but he was 35. He had a heart attack and died. Remember that? He was a gym teacher.
It. Yeah. Okay, yeah.
Like he's 5 years older than me, and he dropped dead. He had a heart attack and died. You know what I mean?
Well,
like,
oh yeah, and I absolutely know what you mean, because with me, now I'm 30. A family full of cancer and different issues, and there's a myriad of things that affect people from all different, a heredity and all of that sort of thing. But I hit 30, and now, like I've got my back screwed up, and that's hurting my ankle. I've got a double hernia, so I can't do all this stuff, and it's all stuff that in my 20s I would have just put on the back burner and just work through it. And now I'm like, no, my body is actually failing. Yeah, I'm not as healthy as I want to be. I've got young kids. I'm too busted up to be a 30-year-old man, and that's what you said. Like this inward look, it's like, my mental and physical health are not where they should be for a young man, because I'm young, but I'm also, we're climbing up that hill and hitting the downward slope eventually. And if you don't have a healthy mind and body, that's once you hit the top of that hill, you start rolling down. You know what I mean? You really do. So it's and it's easy to identify the problems. What are you going to do about them? That's the hardest part to get to. Mm-hmm. For me especially, I'm great at identifying stuff. Horrible at putting it into action. Horrible. Yeah. So
I think like for me, like the mental part of things, lately, even coming to terms with the fact that I'm pretty sure I've got some level of like actual anxiety. Like today, for example, I sat on the couch from 2 p.m. until 4:30, like immobilized. I couldn't move, basically. Like I was on my laptop, but I couldn't move. Like the thought of getting up and going to get water, something was like to the point where it was like a brick was laying on my chest. You know what I mean? Like facing, just even being like existing other than in that scope that I had was too much. You know what I mean? And like for 2 or 3 years before this, man, I used to think that I had a breathing problem. Like I thought I had asthma. Yeah. Like I'm a killer mountain biker. I destroy people up the hills, right? Like other than like a couple savages, like I'm first all the time, like up the hill, right? And I'm like in my head, like, oh, I must have a breathing problem, right? And it's like, no, man, like that's not what it is. And like, I've said to you before, like I don't even think anxiety is the right word, because it's not anxiety. It's like it's almost like a state of panic. It's like internalized panic. It's not anxiety, because I used to do speeches. You used to do speeches on stage. I was anxious for those. That's not like this. That's not like this. You know what I mean? Like I get warm when I have anxiety, stage anxiety, or I'm getting warm. I'm like, oh God, this is going to be scary. Gotta think about everyone being naked on stage. Ha ha.
Exactly. Yeah.
But you're actually able to put one foot in front of the other and get on stage. Right. But this is different, man. This is not the same thing. And that's I'm in stage one, like you said, like I'm just able to recognize at this point.
That's the biggest part. If you don't, if you don't take that first step and realize, like you said, oh, it's a breathing problem, you're blaming something else. That's the same with me with heartburn and all that. I never wanted to admit that any of my problems were stress related until I realized that they're completely stress related. If you don't realize, then you'll just go years and years of doing that same sort of thing. But even you just saying that, like and a lot of people on the outside won't be able to tell those triggers in you because you're so damn good at hiding them. Yeah. You know,
it's like
exactly.
poker, man.
Yeah. See, I know you too well. Like I can tell, like the first Facebook message I get from you in the morning, I can gauge your mood pretty well, but that's because I know you. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. The people that don't, you can, any of us can be damn good pretenders. And that's the problem is there's way too many pretenders in the world. And because nobody wants to admit that they need help or that they should get help or that they're doing something wrong. And that's, you know, that's completely backwards to me. And it took me close to 30 years to realize that, you know, if you have issues, it's okay. Yeah. If you want to fix them, that's also okay. And you should not be nervous to want to do so. Yeah. And in my opinion, too many people are, you know, men and women both. It's sad because then you have to have these chats.
Yeah. And I think age and, you know, like it depends on the person too, right? Like maybe if I told you that when you were 25, like you would have had a very different response. Like you'd have been like, have another beer. You know what I mean? Right. And like, I would have probably been like the same thing too. Yeah. And yeah, like I guess it comes down to that, like, you know, that I guess coming of age or whatever, like, you know, like getting to an age where you're actually not embarrassed and you know that the person receiving this information is also not going to be like embarrassed or critical of you in some weird way because they understand that like you're coming from a very vulnerable place, you know? Yeah. And absolutely. It's a weird thing, man. And I think that like I was going to say that I think COVID and being alone, like a lot of people are very like alone right now and they've had a lot of time to like look in, and a lot of people it's made people's lives worse. A lot of people's lives have become a lot worse, and depression and suicide and all of this stuff, domestic abuse, like it's all gone up, right? So it's really up to the person to, when you do have that inward look, like guide it in the right way. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, make it constructive.
Yeah, I do, because it's not worth it to bottle stuff up. That's the old mentality. That's the old school way, you know. And I'm a stoic father type where, yeah, sure, I'll shoulder some of the blow for everybody. That's part of my life. But at some point, you've shouldered so much of it that you think you're doing good. Yeah. But all you're doing is hurting the people that you care about the most. And that was me the past couple months before, you know, Sarah, and it was mostly Sarah and you were like, okay, like it's time for you to realize that you're not helping anybody being like this. Yeah. So that's, I guess, kind of my defining moment. And I think everybody has to have a defining moment to kind of give them that nudge to get it rolling.
Yeah. I think like, I remember telling you, and I've told myself, and my girlfriend has told me, like, you need to help less people and you need to help yourself, right?
Exactly.
And like, again, like you can just hear that and be like, yeah, anyway, you know what I mean? Like it can be received multiple ways, but if you do actually receive it, you start realizing that you probably are helping a lot of people that either don't reciprocate, or they use you, or they just drain you dry and just leave you there mentally, not physically, but they just leave you in a state of, you know, where you're completely disheveled because you just spent, you know, hours of your day fixing someone else, because you're good at fixing other people, right? And I'm good at fixing other people too. I can help you and I can tell you what to do even, but like I can still sit on the couch and be frozen for 2.5 hours. Yeah, frozen solid, right? So it's like, that's it. Yeah. It's tough, man. And it's like, I don't think that things like this should be dealt with alone, right? Like, no, like I've said before, like I can understand people's reasonings when they say like, you know, like I want it all to end. You know what I mean? Like when you do have like those thoughts and you do want to just stop it all, like there is only one solution really that people see, right? And that's just full stop, right? Yeah. And that's not something that you want to do. It's just the only option that you're given, right? So the idea is you put the brakes on that train and you need to turn it around immediately. And the only way you're going to do that is by actually recognizing it, like actually recognizing that something's fucking wrong. Like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
this podcast has went down to the grim, but we're taking you here before we bring you back up.
I think that's a good metaphor for some things that we've been saying the whole time. Sometimes you got to lose to win. You know, I said it last time, and I'll say it
Dude,
again.
look
and
at this.
That's
Lose to win is on here, buddy. Like, I watched episode 1, and I'm like, he's right, man. Like, you do need to lose to win, and like you lost your father. Like, you know what I mean? But what it gave you was the ability to stand on a proper foundation to start moving forward. Like, and I do honestly believe that. And I've tried, for me, like, I'm like, consider me one of your like best friends. So I'm like, I have to be here at some level for him, because I know that you're an emotional person that breaks it all up for a very, very long time. And then the floodgates get opened, right? And I wanted the floodgates to get opened in the proper direction. And I think that that's what we've done, is like, we've been able to steer it into a canal.
And that's to be able to say that you can do that, and, you know, is impressive, because I was worried about myself. You know, my wife was worried about me. My mother was worried about me, because everybody that's been around me, you were worried about me, know how I usually deal with things. And it's not in a constructive, positive way to try to get myself out, you know, out of it. It's a self-sabotage journey. And this is the first time I feel like in my life I haven't done that. And it's also the most catastrophic thing that's ever happened to me. So I don't necessarily think that they're directly related, but I think that it's a lot of this stuff that we've been talking about in this past half an hour that has helped make me realize that going down the other way isn't just hurting me, it's hurting a lot of people. And you have to climb those same stairs back up. So you pause at that point, you know, you're here. You can take yourself down to here. You've still got to get back up. Why not start here and just keep going up? And that's kind of what I'm trying to do. And
I think that it's pretty insidious, right? Because like it's like drinking. Like, you can, like, I'll have like 3 drinks, and I know that if I have more than 3 drinks, like I can easily convince myself to have 4, 5, 6, 7, right? Like, it's easy, because all those inhibitions go away, right? And it's the same thing with like being depressed or being incredibly angry, right? Like, you can, if you wake up and you're already sad, then like, or depressed or whatever, like, other things will just make that worse. Like, anxiety is like that for sure. Like, oh, like some minor inconvenience happened, now you're more anxious, and now you feel like you have even less time to complete what you have in the day. Like, it's a very, it snowballs out of control for people, right? And that's why I think other people are needed. And that's why I think we need to make this podcast, man. Like, I honestly do think that we need to just go out there and just, for, you know, lack of a better word, like, strip all the clothes off and be like, we're human beings and you are too. And if we can help, then like, it's a disservice if we're not at least trying to, you know.
Absolutely.
And if we can't help and it fails, then like, at least we tried. Like, someone else will try, and someone else will succeed. You know what I mean? Someone will do better, and that's the nature of, you know, like, competition, and that's the nature of all of this. Is if we can't do it well enough to help people, then other people might see this and be like, you know what, I could probably do that a lot better than them. They don't make any sense. And then but at the end of the day, we're still winning, right? Because that still happened, because, you know, A or B happened because of A. You know what I mean? Like, we might just be a step in the process, and I'm happy to do that, because I see other streams and I see other streamers that, you know, like, how are you? And like, you know, like, conversing with people in ways that is at least somewhat meaningful. And I'm like, I think some of these people are starting to get it. You know what I mean? And I think some streamers really do get it, and some, I guess I don't know where I'm going with that, but people do.
I think it was, I don't want to misquote. I think it was Sir Hannah. She's a streamer. She does some Bethesda stuff. She's a partner. And she had a thing on Twitter that was something about the relationship of how do you be a streamer and help people with their issues without making yourself a disheveled mess by absorbing all of those issues. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, like she gets it. Like, she knows she's helping people, and she gets so invested in this that it's, you know, it's causing her own issues. And I just thought it was very admirable that she was saying that on a platform where she has a lot of follows, you know, like, I need some help too. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So I think that's kind of the whole
point. That's full circle.
Yeah, exactly. And that was a pretty metaphorical thing. And it was right before we started doing this. And I was like, dude, I got to remember that.
Yeah, I know. I
Yeah.
messed up a quote that I'm going to have to remember and post in the description of this video. I don't want this to get cut off. We have, I think, almost no time. So if you're joining us, this is the Between the Lives podcast. This is episode 2. My name is Julian, also known as MisterElliot. We've got FatherMillennial over here. He's going live shortly. His real name's Nick, and my anxiety's kicking up, so we're gonna kill it there, babies.
Yep, absolutely.
Fuck.